Welcoming everybody to another edition of our postgame show here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. I'm your host, Cory Brada, working with a smaller group. We just got done with an hour-long show with our great co-host, Kashin Alexander, former Hawkeye All-Big Ten guard, and we are here to talk about the Iowa men and their 104-57 victory over New Orleans. This will likely not be a real long show, given the fact that this is not a good New Orleans team that Iowa faced. And the score would indicate that it was very one-sided. No surprise there. We expected as much, and that's kind of why we timed things the way we did as it relates to having the women's post-game show right after the women's game, even though it kind of impeded on the men's game, which was also on BTN. Give everybody an update here, or I should say a recap. New Orleans, first of all, if you're looking at Ken Pomeroy's ratings, and he is well known for his statistics in college game, men's college game specifically, they are talking about New Orleans, they are 346th out of 364 Division I teams. Their overall rating. All right. They're 332nd in offensive efficiency, or I should say offensive rating. Ken Pomeroy rates offense and defense slightly different than just straight up offensive efficiency versus defensive efficiency. But they're 332nd in offense, 335th in defense. So I know there's going to be a lot of people that say, why did Iowa even play this game? New Orleans was 2-7 heading into this one. Excuse me, they were 2-6 heading into this one. They're now 2-7. They play in the Southland Conference. Iowa, clearly the score would indicate that Iowa dominated this game completely. New Orleans shot 37% from the field. Iowa shot for the game. That's the wrong box score. Let me get the right box score. New Orleans shot for the game. They shot 37% from the field, 17% from three, made just 4 of 24 attempts. Iowa made 63% of their shots, 48% from three, 67% from the foul line. Only got there 9 times. There were only 14 free throws shot in this game, in spite of the fact that Iowa scored a $104. If you're going to take anything away from this game, and I was able to watch part of it while we were recapping the women's game, we hope to be joined by Kyle Spence. I've not heard from Kyle. He was going to be on with us here, and he is missing in action. So I'm going to text him right now. I asked him, are you still coming on the show? And I'm going to say back, I guess not. He's gone. Kyle's nowhere to be found. So hopefully Kyle's okay. But if you're going to take anything away from this, first of all, defensively, the numbers would suggest from this game, although this is not a good New Orleans offense, that Iowa played better defense from behind the arc. We saw the game against Iowa State, in which Iowa State made a couple of several really big threes in that second half that helped stem the tide there. Iowa was up by 7 to 10 points much of that Cy-Hawk game. And the three-point defense kind of suffered down the stretch. Obviously, Iowa didn't rebound the ball against Iowa State. That hurt them as well. And really, this game, as it relates to that category on the glass, I have no reason to believe that Iowa is turning a corner as it relates to rebounding. Why do I say that? Without watching every single play in this one, which I will do later, New Orleans actually out-rebounded Iowa on the offensive glass 16-8. Part of that makes sense because Iowa made most of their shots, right? They made 63% of their shots, but you gave up 16 offensive rebounds. That is too many. Now, New Orleans missing a bunch of shots helps that stat, but if anything, you would hope that Iowa would just dominate the glass, right? Especially in a game where you're not missing shots, the other team's missing a ton. You ought to dominate that team on the glass. Not the case. Iowa won that stat by 1 tonight. Overall rebounding, 35-34, and they gave up 16 offensive rebounds to, what are they? The Volunteers, the Cavaliers, someone told me this earlier, the raffle tickets. I don't even know what they're called. I have no idea what New Orleans mascot is, but Iowa actually just +1 on the glass in this one, in spite of New Orleans being, I'm sure, seriously overmatched if you look at size across the board. They did not start a true quote-unquote center, and Iowa doesn't really either, although Owen Freeman gives you 6'10" on the glass, and Iowa actually did not have a rebounder with more than 5 boards. So they rebounded by committee, and Gary Close has talked about this. We don't have Gary on for the show today. I kind of gave him the day off given the circumstances, but he's talked about the need for this team to rebound by committee. If you missed our postgame show with Jess Settles the other night, I would encourage you to go back and watch that. Privateers. Thank you, James. The New Orleans Privateers. If you missed that show the other night with Coach Close, certainly go check that out, because we talked a little bit about how Iowa was going to be able to overcome, or not going to be able to overcome, their rebounding struggles. And part of it is going to come down to, can you get at least decent rebounding across the board? You can't have people giving you goose eggs, especially in the starting lineup. And in general, Iowa was just okay on the glass today. And the numbers would say that in spite of winning by 50, they're just okay on the glass. Peyton gives you 5. Owen gives you 4. Brock gives you 2. Drew Thelwell gives you 3. Josh Dix gives you 3. Now, Fran would say, well, we're starting a smaller lineup. Well, they were getting killed on the glass in bigger games earlier in the year. One example being that game down in Kansas City against Utah State. Lodgy's got to rebound better. 1 rebound. He played just 7 minutes tonight. Don't know if that was injury related. He played well against Iowa State the other night, but obviously his minutes have really suffered. So my guess is maybe there's an injury to Lodgy Dembele. And I say that too because Iowa did not play Traore. Seydou Traore did not play today. I've not seen any tweets about that, and I'm guessing maybe that's maintenance related. But nothing from Seydou Traore today, as he did not come in the game. We saw an extended run from guys like Carter Kingsbury and Evan Bronze, who played about 10 minutes apiece, as well as Riley Mulvey. Bryce Sanford, who did not play much against Iowa State the other night, he gave him 10 points. 2 of 6 from 3. Cooper Koch also makes his return after missing a number of games due to injury. He was 2 of 5 today. And Sean, New Orleans averaged 6'3". So I don't want to read between just like you don't want to get too excited that Iowa won by 50. I don't know that I want to get too down by the fact that Iowa only was +1 on the glass and gave up 16 on the offensive glass. The reason I'm even talking about it is because they've proven to this point that rebounding is a problem. So if anything, the only thing that's going to make me feel even marginally better against an inferior opponent is if you go out and dominate them in that category. They did not dominate New Orleans on the glass in that category, in spite of shooting a really good number offensively and limiting the number of defensive rebounds for the Privateers. I'll give you kind of a box score recap here. Before we get to the numbers for individuals, I saw a couple of people here earlier talking about Fran's numbers, but we're going to talk about the player numbers here in a second. Before we get to those player stats, do want to thank our sponsor, Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm. Let's go ahead and get Brad's graphic up there. Maybe. Where's Brad's graphic? There it is. Give Brad a call on Monday if you want a great quote on insurance, and you'll get a personalized quote and a quote for you and your family on whatever policies you're in need of. 515-256-6480. He's a trustworthy guy, and he's got a whole group of Hawkeye fans working for him there in the office down on Fluor Drive in Des Moines. Call Brad, 515-256-6480, or visit him online at bradvanmeter.com. Brad Van Meter in Des Moines, a big-time sponsor and supporter of our efforts here, the Iowa men's basketball program, as well as the Iowa women's basketball program, and our post-game coverage right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. So let's give everybody kind of a box score recap. I'll throw the stats up on the bottom of the screen. Pretty balanced scoring, and that's the one thing we take away from the game the other night against Iowa State, even though they lost that one down the stretch. Very balanced scoring-wise. Owen gave him 22 tonight. 22 and 4 for Owen. Need to get more than 4 rebounds. That's all I'll say. He only played 19 minutes because they were running away with this one, but would love to get an average of 8 to 10 rebounds from Owen Freeman in Big Ten play. Don't know that you can count on him for that. He's got to prove it. Peyton Sandfort needs to rebound better as well, and he's had his days. 15 points today, 20 minutes played, 5 rebounds, 3 made threes. He was 3 of 4 from behind the arc. Brock Harding scored 13 points, had 6 assists, just 1 turnover, 2 steals. Good night for Brock. Gives them a couple of rebounds, 3 of 3 from outside. Drew Thelwell also was close to double figures, 9 points for Drew, no turnovers, 4 assists, and made a 3. He was 4 of 6 overall from the field. Josh Dix had 13 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, 3 of 5 from 3. Iowa shot the 3 ball really well, as I mentioned. Laji Dembele misses his only shot attempt, plays just 8 minutes, and gives them goose eggs in every other category. 1 rebound. 1 rebound, 1 missed shot for Laji Dembele. Price Sandfort played 21 minutes, had 10 points, 2 made threes, had a pair of rebounds, and a pair of assists along with 1 steal. Cooper Koch comes back off injury, 6 points for Cooper, 2 of 5 from 3, 5 rebounds for Cooper. That's a positive sign in about 21 minutes of play. Maybe he could become a guy that could rebound at an above average rate, would really help them. He's been out due to injury here lately. Again, 6 points for Cooper Koch, a couple of assists and a steal. Also had a pair of block shots. Chris Taggio plays about 5 minutes, scores 1 bucket from the field. Riley Mulvey scores once as well. I should say twice, both from the free throw line. He ends up with 2 points. A couple of fouls drawn, 4 rebounds for Riley. Obviously, if he could get more run, he'd give him rebounding, but just struggles offensively, and I just don't know if he's cut out to play extended minutes in this league. This is year 4, and he's got the size, but if it hasn't clicked now, will it? That's a question. He was 2 of 4 from the line. Evan Bronze also gave him 2 points. He's a guy who can rebound, but gave them just 1 rebound tonight, 9 minutes of play. Jacob Cook scores 4 points on 2 made field goals. And I believe that's everybody. I don't believe I skipped over anybody. The Hawkeyes winning the turnover battle as they do each and every night. How about this? Just 6 turnovers. So in spite of bad rebounding in most games, they never turn the ball over. They're like the opposite of the women's team. I mentioned that in the postgame show for the women's hoops loss over against Michigan State. Iowa was +9, or I should say -9 turnovers. Just 6 turnovers for the Hawks, 15 for the Privateers. Again, Iowa winning on the glass 35-34, but losing on the offensive glass 16-8. Iowa scored off of a number of those turnovers, 14 points off turnovers for the Hawkeyes to just 9 for the Privateers. Iowa winning in the paint, although by not as much as you'd expect, because again, Iowa shot a lot of threes, 46-38 in the paint. Hawkeyes 8-6 in second chance points. They were +2 there, 38-6 in fast break points. So a big +32 in that category, and the Hawkeyes were +30 in bench scoring. Iowa shot 68% from the field in the first half, 58% in the second. And Again, not as many free throws today, but free throw shooting is still somewhat of a concern. Just 67% from the free throw line. They've got to shoot the free throws better. They've got to rebound better. I think there's only so much upward movement that you're going to experience with this team on the glass. But as it relates to free throw shooting, this team should be top third of the Big Ten with the number of shooters it has. It's not right now. In fact, let me pull up their stats. Big Ten men's basketball stat. I'm just curious to see where they're at as it relates to free throw shooting as of right now. So as they rate up or compare, I should say, with the rest of the conference, let's take a look at free throw shooting. Where is free throw shooting? Okay. Let's see. Totals. Maybe we can get this. Maybe we can't. Apparently we cannot. Big Ten Conference. I'm sure I can get this somewhere. Let me look up Big Ten free throw stats. Stats for Iowa men's basketball. All right, here we go. ESPN's going to give me what I want, I think. The Hawkeyes are shooting. Their percentage from the foul line, they are 14 out of 18 teams in the Big Ten Conference. They're shooting just 69%. They were right on par with their season percentage. That's way too low for a team that scores as many points as they do. They score 86 a game. And the next closest team to that number would be the 8th best free throw shooting team in Penn State, who's averaging 90 a game. But there's that big of a gap between offensive powers, if you will, in this conference with free throw shooting. Iowa should be shooting at a higher clip from the foul line without question. And so that's a stat to continue to follow. Free throws, rebounding. Obviously, you want to make threes. Encouraging that Iowa was 14 of 29 from three. The identity of this team is the identity of what this team is. They're going to it's going to hurt them on the defensive end of the court, obviously, if you can't rebound the ball and you're giving your opponent second chance opportunities like Iowa did against Iowa State. Way too many turnovers, way too many offensive rebounds for the Cyclones, and too many for New Orleans tonight, in spite of the fact that Iowa won this game by a final of 104-57, a 47-point victory. And here's the deal, folks. This was a call-in show, and the phone line is totally dead. We have a very small crowd here. I expected as much. If you want a chance at weighing in on this team, weighing in on this game, you're more than welcome to do that. Of course, it was a Big Ten game. The number is 515-635-1601. It was a Big Ten Network game, I should say. 515-635-1601. But again, the Hawkeyes winning 104-57 over New Orleans. And the Hawkeyes will now have a bit of a break. They'll play next Saturday. They'll play Utah up there in Sioux Falls at 5 p.m. Central Time. That game will also be on Big Ten Network, and that will be in the midst of all the college football playoff semifinals games next weekend. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of a crowd you have up there, and also how many Hawkeye fans decide to watch a men's basketball game over a college football playoff game. I'd hope a lot. It's against a Big 12 team, and it's a win Iowa desperately needs. They got to get another Power 4 win. It's not a great Utah team. It's not a bad Utah team, but that would be wins over Wazoo, Utah, and then losses to Iowa State, Utah State. And basically that would be all she wrote as it relates to non-conference play. And then they would move into conference play with, a 10 and what would be their record at that point? At this point, Iowa is 8-3, so they'd move into conference play with they have one more non-conference game, correct? Besides Utah, they play New Hampshire, so they could get to 10 wins before conference play. James says that he's having problems with StreamYard. So, James, I don't know. You want me to throw? Maybe did I put the wrong link? It's always possible that I screwed up on that, James. It's always possible that I screwed up. So I'll throw the link up in the live chat. If you want to call in, you're more than welcome. More than happy to take your call. And let me just see if I had the right link in our live stream. It's possible that I did not, and that's possible why we are totally dead. It's also possible that people just don't care. No, I think I had the wrong link. Did I have the wrong link in there? I think I had the wrong link in there. Wow. Yeah, because James is here with me now. James, I think I put the wrong link in the StreamYard. I think I put the New Michigan State women's link in there. So
yeah, it said an hour and something, like show ended an hour ago or whatever, an hour 15 minutes ago.
Oh, there you go. I'm guessing you're the only one that actually tried to I'm guessing you're the only one that actually tried to call in, because somebody else would have said something in the chat. But I'm glad you did. I changed it, and I'm guessing you watched a little bit more of this one than I did, so maybe you can give us some
I
thoughts.
watched a little bit of it. Obviously, they were hitting shots, and obviously it's New Orleans, right? I don't think you expect them. You expect them to take care of business, right? So once you kind of knew they were taking care of business, they kind of like checked out the fact of they did what they should have in this game, right? But obviously they get a tougher one coming against Utah. That's a big one, like you say, because you you don't want to drop that one going into Big Ten play, and you got to win all the games you can in our conference because the Big Ten's tough no matter what. And you get Wisconsin as your first Big Ten game out of the break, and they're ranked right now, so who knows how that's going to be. So
James, what's your thoughts on rebounding? Am I making too much of that when I look at the box
I feel
score?
like I feel like against bigger teams, I would say it's still an issue, right? But you kind of understand sometimes you get outnumbered, outmatched, right? Because like sometimes you have bigger size, right? Like depending on the size of it, but against the New Orleans team, you should out rebound them by a lot, right? Just because you have more size than them, you should be out rebounding a New Orleans team. You should be out rebounding it. And I don't know what they did against USC Upstate, right? But I'm just using teams for an example, right? Like you should be out rebounding USC Upstate. You should be out rebounding those kind of teams. You should out rebound by a lot, right? Because you should have more size. You should be more physical than them, right? Because they're smaller than you because they can't recruit as well as you. But like an Iowa State or a Utah or something like that, maybe who has a little bit more size, maybe it should be more balanced, more even. Maybe
Well,
you're
that's what
off a little
I'm
bit
saying.
by 5
They,
or something
they
like
got
that, right? But
they got killed on the offensive glass today, and I know they missed. So New Orleans missed a lot of shots, but the total rebounding numbers should have counted for that because Iowa should still have eaten them alive on the defensive glass, and they did not. That's why
yeah,
Iowa +1 in a game where they won by 47. To me, there's just continuous reason for concern there. Now they were without Traore, but unless Seydou Traore starts getting
but you
extended,
also have Owen Freeman, who's probably bigger and should be more physical than 90% of people you play when you play those kind of teams, right? When you play like the bottom half of the not whatever conference, even in the Southland Conference, like you play a Southland Conference team, you should out rebound them by a lot, right? Like it shouldn't matter who you have, who you don't have,
one would
right? Like,
one would think, yeah.
but that's
I mean,
just the way I
this
look
was
at
the
it.
lack of, honestly, James. I know they played New Orleans. We got 35 people here watching, and maybe that's more about me than this team, but I don't think so in this case. The fact that only 35 people care, and this is a game that was on TV, so people were able to watch it. 35 people cared enough to log on to a post game show. We're 22 minutes in. That's amazing to me, and that just shows you that
Yeah,
place
and
was.
also
I was there in Carver the other night. It was rocking, but then they blow that game at the end, and it's like, and I know that again they're playing New Orleans, but it's almost like fans of this program right now. They gave it a chance against Iowa State because it's a Cy-Hawk game. They lost the same way they always lose, and so it's like they just check back out. And I just wonder if we're gonna. I think we're gonna see that. I think we're until Iowa starts picking up some big wins.
I think it's
A lot of empty seats throughout this year.
I also think it's a Fran. I know there's a lot of people
Oh,
that
sure.
aren't fans of Fran, right? And they don't want to show up and support Fran. And I'm not on either side. That's the coach, so I'm gonna watch the team no matter who the coach is, right? Like that's the kind of person I am, right? Growing up as a kid, I watched the Look Rider games, and I thought Look Rider was a terrible coach, right? But that's just who I am, right? I just like basketball, and I
I'm
watch no
the same
matter
way.
who the
I
coach
watched
is,
every
right?
one of
So
them. I watched every.
to me, it doesn't really matter, right? But I know a lot of people don't like Fran, and I understand why they don't like Fran. I'm not saying they're wrong, this or that. I understand why you don't like Fran, and I can get it. And that's why I think a lot of people have already checked out, right? Because Fran's been there. They feel like Fran's been there too long. He hasn't had that success when he gets to the postseason, right? He's never made the Sweet 16, right? He's never been gotten as far enough for a lot of people's eyes, and I get that point of it. And that's why he doesn't have the support, and it's sad. But that's why I will. Women actually have support because they made back-to-back national championships. Yeah, they didn't win them, right? But they made back-to-back national championships, right? So that's why they have the support. And football will always have support just because it's football. And I know people kind of are the same way with Kirk a little bit on the football side of things, but it's just sad to see because you know how hard those guys work, right? And you know how hard those guys put in the time, the effort, and you want to see the fans support them no matter whether they like the coach or not, right? Because you know how hard the kids work, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's more what it's sad about for me. It's just watching those guys work hard and how hard they work, and they don't get the fan support. And unless they go play a neutral site game like Moline or something like that, then you get fan support, right? But you play a regular just game on a Sunday night, you don't get that support. But
Esther, I'm doing good. Thank you for being here, Esther. Always good to see your name in the chat. Yeah, I agree with you. There, I don't know what it's going to be like up in Sioux Falls. Tickets are expensive, way more than it should be. But I would hope they can pack that little gym. But I'm also
yeah,
not holding my breath. It's a small gym, James.
yeah. It's also a Saturday before before Christmas, right? So you don't know how that's going to turn out to be, but it's weird. It's just weird to see the dynamic, right? Because like growing up, the dynamic obviously at some schools, a lot of schools is always different. Where it's usually the men usually get more support than the women, right? But the women get a lot more support here than the men. It's just weird to see, and rebounding could be part of that, right? Because like that could be why they haven't made a tournament, right? And that's just one thing we haven't talked about enough, right? Like that they have never been a great rebounding team, right? So it's kind of hard
Rebounding,
what can do that.
rebounding, defense, free throw shooting normally is not a problem, and
Yeah,
that's why to me that's one thing that should be not priority number one, but like that's the most fixable thing. But I don't know how
yeah.
you fix it other than just continue to shoot free throws and
Be-
kind of free throws in practice.
Yeah, and sometimes just because you shoot kind of free throws in practice, unfortunately, it doesn't
Yep.
make a difference sometimes, right? It's all about mentality when you get to the free throw line, right? And what you're thinking and how you're trying to think about it. But it'll be interesting to see. Utah's a really interesting. Then obviously you get New Hampshire right before you get Wisconsin. And I don't know what to think about that. Obviously, I know New Hampshire's probably not a great team, right? And that, but you get a game before Wisconsin, so maybe they. It's kind of like a gimme game in a way. It should be a gimme game. At least you never know how it's gonna go, right? We lost to Western Illinois a couple years ago, right? So you never know or Eastern Illinois a couple years ago, right? So you never know how that's gonna go, right? But it should be a gimme game before you get into conference play. But the conference play is what scares me the most because, like you said, we get out rebounded by these teams. If you get out rebounded by a team like a New Orleans, think about playing a team like a Wisconsin, right? Who has size. You've seen what happened with Michigan when they had Cheddar and Wolf and who's the other? They had another big guy, right? Like you're gonna run into at least two 7-footers. Most teams, right? Like at least two 7-footers, right? So like if you don't have him, a lot of times you have a bigger guy come off the bench, and Bronze is not gonna be able to rebound with him, right? So they're gonna keep getting the rebounds, and every time you give them more chances, that's more chances for them to score, right? So you gotta kind of try to take it away, and especially with how basketball is now, you give them more chances. They might hit threes here and there, and that's gonna put you even more down too. So it's tough, and it's something that I wish Fran would figure out, but that's just the way he coaches. And unfortunately, that's what we've seen forever, right? Defensive side too. And that's why I don't really complain about defense as much because know that's how it's going to go, right? Like, I'm not going to preach something that I know that's how it's been for so long, right? Like, yes, I would like him to fix it,
It's
right?
optional, James.
But
Defense is optional.
yeah, no, I know, but I'm saying, yes, I would like the defense to be different, but I've also seen him coach that way for multiple years. So it's like, why am I going to complain about something that he hasn't fixed since he's been in Iowa, right? So I can't really worry about that, right? So.
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
But no, I'll let you go. And obviously, it's good to get one win. Obviously, I know this was a win that you should have got, but with the way the women lost, I'm just glad at least the men won. I know it was probably a game they should have won, but like I said, we lost to Houston a couple years ago. So you never know in some of these games sometimes, right? Because you think they're all gimmies, but you just never know how it's going to work out, right? But when you're shooting hot like they did in parts of the first half, you shouldn't lose the game anyway. So, and I know they did the Iowa State. Obviously, it's a different animal, but that's one of the better teams. Iowa State's one of the better teams in the country. And I don't want people obviously to think about that. Yeah, they lost the way they lost, but Iowa State's one of the better teams in the country. So, you can't really hang your head on that one either. So,
Well, James, we appreciate it as always, sir, and we'll have a little
yep.
bit of a break here, but we'll talk to you next weekend.
Yep. Talk to you later and go Hawks. And the whole Hank Brown situation, I know you talked to Erica about it on the end of the show. I'm just going to say, either way, I don't care. I'm going to support him no matter whether he's good or bad. Obviously, I'm just that fan, but you hope he turns out good, right? And I'm happy he's a Hawk, and that was his choice. So I'm going to support him because he chose to come to Iowa, right? So you hope you get panned on. Obviously, he has a lot of years left, but you never know how it's going to work either way. But I trust him more than I trust Brian, if that makes sense, right? When it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. So
Yep.
I have a little bit more faith than I usually do, but we'll see what happens.
All right, James. Have a great night. Appreciate it, sir.
You too.
All right. The Hawkeyes defeating the Privateers of New Orleans 104-57 behind 22 points from Owen Freeman, 15 from Peyton Sandfort, 10 from Price Sandfort, the younger brother of Peyton, and 13 from, wait a minute, why does it say Dembele? It says Dembele with 13 points. Dembele did not have 13 points. Let's just erase that. I have no idea where that stat came from. Dembele did not have, who had 13 points? Somebody had to have had 13 points here. Maybe I just got that mixed up with someone. Is it Josh Dix? Yeah, Josh Dix. Why does it say Dembele? I thought I changed that. All right, here we go. Here's the clerical errors on my part. Josh Dix with 13 points. He was 3 of 3 from 3. Maybe I got confused because Logi was 3 of 3 from 3 against Iowa State the other night. But I'll have to go back and look to see what was going on with Logi. But the Hawkeyes winning 104-57. Folks, I'll be live with you following everything coming up here. Hawkeye women's basketball Friday against UNI, and the men on Saturday, as they'll take on the Utah Utes up at Sioux Falls, the Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Stay tuned for portal coverage, recruiting, all that stuff right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Hit that like button, folks. If you're so willing, please donate. Consider donating. It does help the show to keep going. Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, links in the description. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.